Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock of the Emerald Planet and Emerald Planet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we have a planet of 9 billion people by 2038 and possibly 12 to 13 billion by the end of this century, how are we going to be able to take care of all these people on planet Earth? And that's what Emerald Planet's all about. We come to you looking at the solutions, the best practices from around the globe as we create the Emerald Planet. Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet. We're making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And seeing the long-term impacts of climate change. We're glad to have you. Thank you for being with us. As we look around the globe, we found a most interesting country that's doing wonderful things with its females, both the mothers and the young girls, expanding into the real green economy of agriculture. And we have Awamary Khan. She's the founder and plus CEO. I have to do that correctly. The woman boss. And we're going to do a series of 4 different case studies. It's the first time that we've had this format on the Emerald Planet TV. It's very exciting. And you're going to see 4 different women that are actually increasing the incomes of their families, providing food within their communities, and actually even exporting abroad. So this is very, very exciting. So we're going to start off with the woman boss, which is Awamary Khan. She's going to introduce each of our guests. And Awamary, welcome to the Emerald Planet TV.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Sam.
I think this is, what you're doing is absolutely fantastic. Tell us a little bit about the woman boss. What does that stand for and why is that so important?
Sure. So the Woman Boss is actually a creative space for women and girls that come together to curate, collaborate, and engage and learn. And we focus on 3 things that are innovation, entrepreneurship, and leadership.
That's absolutely fantastic. And we're going to start off with the first case study. We're going to include the location where the Gambia is actually located. And then we'll introduce your first featured guest. But looking at the continent of Africa, why is it so important in the 21st century?
Well, in the 21st century, it's really, really important, especially when it comes to agriculture as a means of creating sustainable economies. The Gambia being the smallest country in Africa, we have great, rainy and dry season, great weather to be able to grow our food. So it's one thing that we encourage, making farming and agriculture sexy again.
Oh, that's incredible. Now, tell us a little bit about the Gambia itself. It's a very interesting history. It's very strategically located. Why is the Gambia so important?
So the Gambia is really important. The good thing is that if you're looking at it in the map of West Africa, it's centered in the middle of Senegal, and then the river Gambia runs right through it. So you're surrounded by the coastal Atlantic Ocean and then the river. The land is fertile, and it's an English colony, so we speak really good English in the country. So it's perfectly situated.
Yeah, and linguistically, educationally, agriculturally, even historically, it's a very important country. And
Yes.
Also, too, you have a very beautiful capital city that we should mention that as well. But looking at our first case study, introduce our guest, and then we'll start seeing some photographs of the work that she's doing.
Sure. So this is Nday Awasise. She's a woman boss, a cohort member. So she actually went through Accelerator Program Cohort 1. And you can see her, she has a certificate of completion. And so for her, she processes moringa. Moringa is a crop that's rich in nutrients, high in vitamins, and she makes different products out of moringa. And, for example, like oils, shea butter mixed with moringa, food products mixed with moringa. And her land that she actually owns is 1 hectare land.
Yeah, that's very important. But looking at the moringa as a plant, as a crop, looking at the use within a society, historically, this has been something very important, correct?
Yes, definitely very, very important. Moringa is, it's one that's very, very easy to grow. So it's actually in the Gambia, if you come into the Gambia, you find it in lots of different compounds, because it's one, with low income, a lot of majority of the low income households will use it as a way to actually gain nutrients eating it. So instead of, if you can't afford to buy meats or chicken and so on, or even fish, moringa is the way to actually eat to be able to get the nutrients into your body.
So really, what we're seeing here in this photograph, this is a group outing, but you're really looking at something that's spread across the entire society, but also it's very relevant to the future food supply for the entire African continent.
Absolutely. So if you can look at the farm that she's in right now, so she grows moringa, but in the back of it too, she's growing oranges.
Mhm.
And then this is the next slide, if you wanted to highlight that, it's we have a water problem in the Gambia where, even though we have the ocean, we have the river, the water supply just doesn't reach to the rural parts of the Gambia very, very easily. So most people own a borehole to be able to have water. And so what you see is a way for them to maintain water like wells to be able to, keep the soil fertile, especially during the dry season.
Mhm. And that's very important. And in the agricultural, it is sexy. It's doing much as far as bringing incomes and stability to families in the Gambia and across Africa. But also, it really is a lot of work.
It really is because women there don't have the, large equipments. Like if you look into the US, how they have the big caterpillars that they use, but here it's everything by hand. It's all manual labor that the women have to do. So most of them too, there's other components behind it that, you don't have the men that are supporting you in this case. So you almost feel alone and you have other women that are, part of your, farm and
Mhm.
etc. But it's all manual labor that you would think somebody else is doing, but this is the work that women have to do.
Now, looking at the women boss, and I'm going to park on this image right here because this is very cleverly done.
Yes,
Taking old tires, which really is a huge waste in most countries.
yes.
It breeds mosquitoes, so a lot of disease come out of these. But you're doing something with it. But the woman boss, how do you take these very simple ideas and people all of a sudden look at whatever natural resource or manufactured resources around them, all of a sudden becomes a business opportunity.
So for the woman boss, really, if you look at, especially in this photograph right here, we do have actually in the country, we do have a problem of waste and in terms of tires. So people are actually looking at tires and ways of recycling it. So in this case, obviously she's using it for her farm, but we have other people that are actually using it to make trash cans around so we can use it as dustbins. But it's just, if you don't have the land in the Gambia, which most women don't own land because
Mhm.
that's something men own, this is a way for you to create some sort of a garden in the back of your house or, in other public places that at least you can, figure out a way to earn some, sort of revenue by growing little gardens, whether it's fruits, vegetables, and in this case, different forms of herbs to
Mhm.
kind of help.
Yeah, and the whole thing is Awamary, is that in a sense, even in the United States or large industrialized countries, we're saying there's no such thing as waste anymore. This is just a new raw material to be recycled, repurposed, rediscovered in new
Right.
ways that brings value into the society. And that's what we see in this photograph here with the herbs planted in among these old, look like probably truck tires. What is
Yeah.
happening in this photograph?
So in this photograph, we talked about the really good importance of moringa. So this is the drying process. And so this is how she puts it in racks and dry them before we process it into making it into a powder form, which most people, if you don't like it freshly cooked, they make it in stews, etc. You'll dry them and you can sprinkle it in smoothies, or you can, take them as capsules a day. So this is the drying process that they have to do manually.
Now, this is really the moringa itself, I believe. It's already
Yeah,
dried, ready to be packaged. What
correct.
tell us about this? Why is this so important as a food source? What's in it? And again, evidently, if most people are doing it, it's a low cost source of food for no matter what socioeconomic background you come out of.
Sure. Sure. So, like I mentioned before, that it's high in iron, high in protein, high in vitamin B6, magnesium, etc. It has all these rich proteins, but it's also known to help with regulate blood pressure, help with diabetes,
Mm,
also help with some forms of cancer. And helps also with weight loss. So it's one of those uh, herbs that people didn't know about it, and then it became this really big popular, because people are coming, or the Chinese are coming into the Gambia, they're growing it, they're exporting it out. And so we thought, why not, our own African women also do the same thing, where you're making other products like oils for our hair, soaps that we can use. You see it here. I sprinkle mine. I actually use it every day and sprinkle it on my smoothies on a daily basis,
mm.
or take it into capsules just for better health, especially right now with COVID-19 is actually really good to build your immune system.
And the look of this, it's such a rich color. I mean, it's actually very pretty.
Yeah.
And I never thought I would see something that pretty. Now, looking at the body butter, the shea butter, tell us about that. This is really a rage all across the globe.
Yes. So shea butter, I mean, it's really well known all across the globe because they're shea nuts that African women usually process to make it into butter for lotions, cream, shampoos, etc. So we did a little bit of a hint. So, Nayawal came up with a great idea of not only using that, let me add another rich oil to mix it in for hair growth
Mhm.
and body, to give you a really more even skin tone. And so the moringa butter, body butter, does exactly that. It's really great, rich in nutrients for your body, no chemicals, all organically processed, and it's amazing and
That
smells
is,
amazing as well.
yeah, we're going to go out on this image right here. Tell us a little bit about what you see for the future of agriculture in this case study number one. What best practices are you seeing with this particular case study that we need to look at for women across not only the African continent, but women across the whole globe?
Sure. So, I mean, in this photograph, you actually see lots of women. There was a trade fair, including the first lady, purchasing some of the items that she makes. She makes also peanut covered into the moringa. But I think what's been really inspiring, because this lady, she's under 30, but she came up with this great idea of using what we currently have with our local resources and making it into a profitable business. And not only that, not only catering for the Gambian community, but actually catering for the international community with the right packaging. And just coming up with different innovative ideas where she learns from various things that are happening over the internet, or just coming up with her own to create a sustainable economy for herself.
This is absolutely fantastic. This is Awamary Khan, founder plus CEO of the Women Boss. Case study number one in the Gambia as we're looking around the globe to create the Emerald Planet. Looking at the country of the Gambia and how it's actually expanding agricultural opportunities, small business, even jobs through women throughout the country. We wanted to introduce this through Awamary Khan. She is the founder plus CEO of the Woman Boss. And what she's doing is she is identifying females that actually would like to be into agriculture, producing goods, but also services that can be not only used within the Gambia itself, but also exported around the globe. And so there's just many interesting ideas and best practices that are coming out of this, the Woman Boss program in the Gambia. And Awamary, welcome to the Emerald Planet TV.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Sam.
In this one, we're going to be talking about how agriculture alleviates poverty. But tell us a little bit about why the Woman Boss really decided in the very beginning to focus on agriculture when so many nonprofits just almost like they ignore agriculture.
Well, so I believe that, at the Woman Boss, we believe that agriculture is $1 trillion business, obviously. And not only that, if we want to alleviate poverty and hunger, this is another way that we can do that by growing our own food. So we noticed that earlier on that, we had a lot of people coming into the land and into the Gambia, using the land, growing the food and exporting it out. And then we had our own people in the Gambia that were hungry. And so we thought, what can we do to grow food to make sure that we can also export our own, but not only that, make sure we feed the Gambia first. And so that's how we thought about, coming up with a program for women entrepreneurs in agriculture.
Yeah. And in this case study, I'm going to let you introduce our guest there with this Nopal Jeg, which I think is a very clever idea as a name. But the Gambia is a very unique country. We've talked about this before, but I just want to remind people, where is the Gambia and why is it so critically important for such a small country?
Sure. So the Gambia is actually located in the western part of Africa, and it's the smallest country in Africa, located literally sitting inside Senegal. Senegal is a francophone, but we are, fortunately, I always say that fortunately, we're an anglophone country. And so it's really, really important because as small as it is, of a population of 2 million, shortly over 2 million people, we do have a lot of challenges that we have as a country, especially one of them being agriculture and production of food.
Mm-hmm. Now, looking at the notion of agriculture alleviating poverty, that's a very bold statement. How can you make such a bold statement that agriculture will alleviate poverty? And I've added the will into it.
It will. And so if there's a will, there's a way. And so we do believe that because if you look at the land, it's there, it's fertile. And we believe in growing our own food, not only, like I mentioned, to feed the country, but also to create access to market to be able to export it. So if you look at, for example, Nopal Jeg, her name is Binta, in this picture, she actually uses grains, which doesn't take as much to grow. She collaborates with other farmers. So she doesn't own her own farm because she cannot afford the land, but she collaborates with other farmers and women farmers so they can give her the raw products. So in this case, it's millet, it's fonio, it's peanuts, etc. And then she dries the grains and packages them really well so you can export it out, anywhere else or even keep them. With longer shelf life so that you can reuse them during the not so great season where you can have the grains.
Tell us a little bit about her name. It's a very unusual name, I think.
Yes.
Why did she select that name?
So Nopal Jeg means give the lady a break. So she thought, if you have to go to the farm, get the millet, process it, and processing really for the Gambia doesn't mean a machine. It actually means you using your hands later, to pound it, with a mortar, and it's really, really labor intensive. So she thought, if I do all this, package it, people like me that have jobs that are educated or even not, you can easily just buy the package, put some water in, put it in a microwave, and it's done. And you have your whole grain, available to you right at the door.
That's absolutely fantastic. Going out to the fields, and we're going to have some photographs of the agricultural background, and then we'll look at some of the products coming out of this. What are we
Sure.
looking at here?
So you're looking at actually the farm that she uses. So she collaborates with this guy who owns a farm, who employs all women. And this is a way that you can see some of the the crops, that the grains that they're growing doesn't take much to grow. So collaborate in essence, making them a little bit sustainably economically, and then as well she finds a way to bringing and mitigate some of the risks that she would have to do.
Now, looking at we're talking about real work here. I came off of
Absolutely.
a ranch. We had about 27 horses, and it was a big operation for the United States. But when you look at this is very well. It's almost like it's manicured what they're doing and how they're farming this. What about farming in the Gambia that really represents Africa? And and even though it may be traditional, stability as far as bringing incomes and allowing people to progress up through the middle class through agriculture.
Sure. So, like currently, right now in the Gambia, so when you can see the picture, obviously there's youth involved as well. Some of the youth in the rural parts of the Gambia, they go to school, but they get off school and they work in the farms to help their parents or anybody else who owns the farm, so they can make some sort of revenue. So they use the horses, they use donkeys. It's all heavy manual work because, again, like I mentioned, they cannot afford the heavy machinery. So
Mm-hmm.
everything is really highly labor intensive.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the rural parts of the Gambia, for example, majority of the women there, it's agriculture is the way. The only source of income that they could do is agriculture or horticulture.
Now, looking at these other photographs, tell us what we're looking at here, and again, why important to the diet, why important to the environment, and why important to each of the families as far as a revenue, but also as a food source.
Sure. So what you're looking at right now is actually millet. And so this is the raw millet. Once you chop it off from the top, so you'll take these, I don't know, husks of millet and, pull it down, wash it, process it, and eventually becomes this powder that you can use. And they make it into some sort of ball so that you see it's made out to make cheddar, it's made out to make chakra, which are local foods that you can
Mm-hmm.
use that are 100% made out of millet, which is great for your diet. It's better than using rice, which is rich in sugar. These are not very healthy. So usually in the Gambia, that's how you feed your babies. After they've between breastfeeding and such, so it's mixed.
Mm-hmm.
So you use millet in your foods, your local foods that you cook, is a way to be healthy and stronger,
Mm-hmm.
and just produce, really stabilize your blood pressure,
Mm-hmm.
especially with that.
Right. Now, this is the real process of actually preparing
Exactly.
the millet. Tell us what they're doing with this, and then I assume this ends up going right into the kitchen and being prepared to eat.
So what they're doing right now, so they're taking out of the house. It's almost like you pounding them so they can come off, and then you'll take the millet, wash it, and dry them, then take it to usually unfortunately, because they cannot afford the machines, but there are plants that actually have the machine, so you will take it there, pay an amount so they can make it into powder.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to make it into other parts of other types of porridges and such, but in this case, usually most of the time you pound it, make it your own, process it all by hand, and then cook it right at the kitchen. So you're right, take it right next to the kitchen and process and eat it.
So this really is field to fork
Yes.
as far as this whole process in the Gambia, and it's just really very interesting. This looks like peanuts. Why is
Yeah.
peanuts so important?
Peanuts are actually very, very important. So the Gambia is actually known for two things. Well, three things. One is it's a tourist area, so people come in, because of the beaches and the great, water and all of the things, activities that you can do. Second of it is, bird watching. We have all sorts of beautiful birds. But the third is peanuts. So
Mm-hmm.
we process lots of peanuts for different economies. It's mainly exported out to England, to China, but mainly we make peanut oil. And so we eat a lot of peanuts in our diet. We make peanut porridges. We also make peanut paste that we cook with stews. which are really, really healthy for you, or we make it into, there's all sorts of different peanuts that you can have, covered in sugar, covered, boiled, grilled. So we eat all sorts of peanuts. So it's the one thing that you'll see across all over.
So this is something that each family, each woman with her family actually can grow their own peanuts and possibly even the millet and some of the other fruits and vegetables that we've seen. But this is really beautiful packaging. Tell us about
Absolutely.
the evolution of this packaging.
So when I met the ladies, especially with her, when I met her, she was, a couple years ago, she was putting the processed food, so in this case, it's cherry, which is the steamed millet, in Ziploc bags. And I thought, if you put it in Ziploc bags, I can buy it, but it's local. If you're thinking regionally or even exporting it out internationally, you have to have the proper packaging, invest in packaging, invest in, the labeling, etc. So we started with, there was another form of plastic which I did not like, and so we encouraged the women that try to avoid plastic if you're encouraging more of a gluten-free, because all these are gluten-free. If you're promoting gluten-free, organic, then you have to also go with a better packaging. So you invest in the packaging, the labeling, and so it looks great. So we actually export it out to the United States, some in Europe. So depending, or people can come into the Gambia, easily pick it, purchase it, and take it along as gifts.
Yeah, and these are really very pretty packaging, but also these products, as you were talking about, is how nutritious each one of these are, what they do as far as the body is concerned. So
Sure.
we're going to go out on this whole thing about agriculture, really alleviates poverty. It's through food, it's through their own business. What do you see for the growth and development of this type of project spreading across the Gambia, bringing more income into the local families, and to help actually alleviate poverty?
Sure. And I think one thing that we really want to focus to at the Woman Boss is, we want to educate children now to make sure that they know the importance of agriculture, because it's been so long that people are shying upon that. Like, you have to be educated to get away. So now it's agriculture should be taught in schools so that, we can push forward as an agenda to make sure we grow our own foods. The second is obviously providing mentorship. So we mentor the women agriculturalists, but also the women agriculturalists serving as mentors to these young women or young girls so that they can also grow their foods. We want to provide access to resources such as capital, technical assistance, and markets. And then the main thing is by lobbying for them at local and national level government. Because if you do all this, then we're pushing the alleviation of poverty. We're pushing more people into agriculture. We're creating policies and systems for them and giving them that voice that, in other words, they would never had. So we want to be that liaison to eventually help alleviate, that poverty or even hunger as well.
Fantastic. Awamary Khan, the woman boss, as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet. Looking at the country of the Gambia, which is West Africa, on the continent of Africa, 54 nations. The Gambia is the smallest of those, but yet has a huge importance as far as agriculture is concerned, women's empowerment, women's entrepreneurship, and women and young girls' education. And so this is Awamary Khan. She's the founder plus CEO of the Women Boss. And we're looking at these different case studies. This is case study number 3 about food security and population growth. And Awamary, looking at the Woman Boss, how did you decide that you wanted to, one, to be involved with agriculture, but also you're doing so many other services just as helping them create these logos, this very nice branding for these women that are going into agriculture?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. So I can speak about, for example, the logo that you're looking at with Ellen Tentu. So she's the one who, her name is Isatu. So she came into a cohort, a second cohort. So within our accelerator program, we actually focus on entrepreneurial skills as a whole. So we talk about, branding, marketing, all the way through, saving, budgeting, financial statements, etc. Because without it, you really cannot know whether you're successful or not. And so we wanted to help all sorts of women entrepreneurs. As long as you're a woman, we know we're there to help you. But we wanted to create specifically certain programs for women in agriculture, because not only can it help feed the country, but also you're touching rural parts of the Gambia, because majority of the women there, that's their only source of income.
Now,
So
now,
that was the main point.
now looking at the Gambia, we've talked about, it's the smallest country, small population, yet very important, rich as far as the soils and the fisheries and the natural resources. But it follows, almost the entire country follows, the Gambia River. Why is that so critical as far as agriculture and the future for women in the Gambia to be able to develop their own business?
Sure. So if you look at the map of the Gambia, obviously the River Gambia runs right through in the middle of it. So what we encourage women is try to utilize the river as a source of water, to be able to use that for your farms. That's one thing. Another one that's trying to help them, fundraise for boreholes that they need to be able to have water supply, because that's one thing. Water supply is just I don't know why we have water problems, but with the amount of rain that we have, but we have water problems in the Gambia. And so it's just really, really important to push that agriculture, which in turn educates people on how to actually maintain good source of water.
I think it's fantastic. But I really like this photograph. But not only just the woman entrepreneur in this, but looking at the housing, looking at the land, this looks like a very nice place to live, but
Yes.
also a wonderful place to expand and build on agriculture.
Absolutely. Gambia, it's a really rich in natural resources, but a beautiful country because it's in the coast of Africa, surrounded by the ocean and the river. And then, of course, with Isatu, she owns her own farm. She calls it her garden because she doesn't feel like it's that big. It's 18 by 50, where she grows her own fruits, vegetables, grows her own nuts, etc. But not furthermore, now she collaborates with other women that also own their own farms to supplement the amount that she wants to, produce so she can sell it. But with her, what I really like is I challenged her to say, you have all these great ideas and you're an educated farmer. So she
Mhm.
actually has a college degree. And so I said, why not even go further and try to do like, a fresh box idea, kind of like when I
Mhm.
lived in the United States where they delivered my fresh box and whatever
Sure.
comes in, would come that. So I challenged her to get a new logo. I challenged her to get, that concept. And so that's what she's working on right now.
Yeah, this is absolutely incredible. Looking at this land, it looks very rich.
Yes.
Yet a lot of this really is hand labor.
Yes.
So, how do you attract women into this? Saying, okay, you have a college degree, you're high school educated, but we're going to take you back to the farm, and then you have to start doing manual labor again. How do you bridge that gap of a society, the old British colonial system, where you
Yeah.
had to have a degree, you had to pass the national exams in order to be able to do absolutely anything within
Right.
the society, but you're going beyond that with the women boss, correct?
Correct. So what we push for, and when I talk about making agriculture sexy again, is we push for not only can you create generational wealth, because these could be farms that could be in your family for a very long time, but also, you creating jobs, you feeding and helping alleviate hunger. You talking about poverty, this could actually help so many women in this case to create employment for them. So we talk about more of the pros than the cons, and then to say what not a better thing than to grow your own food, where now a lot of people actually even that have retired from working in various NGOs, large NGOs, or even governments that are going into agriculture now, so we make it very lucrative for them.
Yeah. Now looking at this, I mean, again, this is very attractive land. It's quite flat, so it really is easy to get around and to
Correct.
farm. These berms that they are planting into, again, is this to conserve water? And how are you using best practices both for the land and water so that the agricultural production is constantly increasing and not a general decline as you're seeing around the globe when you're
Sure.
using harsh chemicals and sterilizing the soil?
Sure. So, like, with her especially, she doesn't use any fertilizer. She does, I mean, not any chemicals to grow her organic fruits and vegetables. That's one thing she wants to stay true to herself. That's why she chose to have a smaller scale that she can manage and maintain. And so, with her, making sure that she maintains a good well to have, make sure that the water supply, it's healthy enough, it's clean enough for the fruits and vegetables that she grows, and then making sure also furthermore to employ women entrepreneurs that actually help her
Mhm.
to maintain the soil and the farm.
Mhm. Beautiful plants. Beautiful plants. Tell us about how it's so important, really, to be going organic, not only for use by Gambians themselves, but now more and more, if you're going to export, particularly into the European Union, it better
Yeah,
be certified organic.
correct. So for us, that's one thing that they're not still exposed to the terminology of organic and non-GMO.
Hmm.
Coming from the U.S., knowing that this is what I expect out of my fruits and vegetables. This is how they've been growing it for years,
Hmm.
and so now it's that how do I keep the fruits and vegetables fresh? Making sure that when there are certain insects that are around, how do I maintain that? What can I use that are safe enough that will still maintain that organic quality for her fruits and vegetables? In this case, we do eat in the Gambia, we eat a lot of leaves, and these are some of the leaves that are I don't they're similar to spinach, but made into different stews that she also grows fresh. Catering for some of the women in the Gambia as well to make it easy, processes, washes, and packages it all and delivered. And so I think it's just, mainly looking at overall what is healthy and making sure that what we put in our stomachs are important.
Yeah. And looking at this, these are very vibrant plants.
Yeah.
And so doing that, how much time does she really have to spend, in her farm, but in her garden, as she calls it, in order to have plants that look like this and then to have a sustainable income?
So for right now, I know that what she's doing right now is just making sure, at least on a daily basis, she's at the farm, making sure that if her staff is there to maintain that insects and with the water level and the soil level, everything looks good.
Hmm.
And then obviously whatever harvesting time, so she can map out when to collect her revenue and the sales, etc., depending on certain orders that she'll has to fill as well. But I know from her is that it's very, very labor intensive. And then you also have to make sure that you're making enough money to pay, the farmers that are also helping you.
Hmm. Hmm. Now, looking at the plants, and we're going to leave this here for just a minute,
Sure.
but how is it? How do they balance the environment, economy, and also the food that they're actually providing to their family? And how does a woman boss help them to look at this balance? That it's about the environment, it's about the economy, but also how you take care of your own family and those within your own community.
Correct. So for women farmers, like in the Gambia, especially for rural women farmers, they put their most of them are head of households at home. Their husbands, whether they choose to work or not, but sometimes they're doing other jobs that don't share very well in in the household, or majority of single women that have to put their children to school, etc. And
Mhm.
so, with you looking at the economy as a whole, where we're creating um, a source of jobs for women entrepreneurs, where you have these farms, we can help boost them with seeds, diversification of seeds,
Mhm.
where there are different type of seeds that we can give them. So not every woman is producing onions, for example. So there's
Mhm.
so much waste at the end. But looking at different ways for them to harvest and be able to earn their own income. So we teach them from entrepreneurship 101 all the way to how to actually save for the future.
Mhm. We were talking earlier about this concept of the solar dryers. How do you think this would help to process these foods, be able to harvest in the high seasons when you have the greatest amount of crops, store it, and then be able to sell it in the marketplace, be able to use it with your family, so that you're evening out the income flows, and but using everything that you're producing.
Sure. I mean, I think it will be amazing. It's amazing idea. It will be fantastic for them because, in the Gambia, one thing I must give them credit to, they're used to eating everything so fresh. You cut it today, you eat it today. But there are some instances, for example, okra. It's one thing that we eat a lot in the Gambia, and so it's seasonal. So when the season goes out, we feel like people don't get to eat it, but it's so nutritious. And I think that's a great concept that, okay, if we dry it well and they can put it in their freezers, then they can use for later consumption. And that's a concept that it's need to be taught in the industry for sure.
And we'll talk more. We'll talk more about that. But I tell you, this is really just beautiful fruits and vegetables that you have. Going out on this, what do you see for other women coming into agriculture? We got about 20 seconds
Sure.
in the future as the new green economy for the Gambia, but also the entire African continent.
I mean, I push for women. I said, don't be afraid. Come in, everything that you have in, push it in. Agriculture can do so much for you financially, create generational wealth. It can feed the economy. It can create jobs. So we really want to push them and know that this is a profession that should be admired, just like as a doctor is.
Fantastic. Awamary Khan, founder plus CEO of the Woman Boss, as we create the Emerald Planet. Looking at the Gambia and West Africa, small country, yet very powerful as far as food production and being willing to share its green best practices around the globe. And that's what we're really talking about. We have Awamary Khan. She's a founder plus CEO of the Woman Boss. And we're going to be talking about promoting healthy living through agriculture, which is really a new theme that's going all across the African continent, 54 nations. And people are really taking this seriously, particularly the females. And so I will marry, why are women becoming so enamored with and interested in agriculture where before it was almost like it was shunned or was something that you just did in the countryside? But us modern urbanites, we really don't have to think about agriculture.
Correct. So I think, especially for the country of the Gambia, majority of the farming was done in rural parts of the Gambia. And so now you tend to find all these women that are college educated, post graduate education, coming back home and saying that, you know what, I know that this is something that we need to push for, because if you travel the world, you'll see that there's a high chance and high growth of organic, non-GMO fruits and vegetables that's being promoted. And so, since we already live that type of a lifestyle, why not promote it more into our communities, and then get to go back to how we used to eat the healthy foods, and way of living, rather than heavy on starch with rice and bread and so on, because it's the new way of living.
Right. Now, looking at the map of Gambia, we've shown this before, but where are the concentrations as far as women that are available to do the agriculture? And also, where would you find the land to do agriculture? I know we can do what's
Yeah,
called small lot farming and make
sure.
a living wage. But what you're sharing is, in this case study number 4, this lady actually has 10 hectares of land. That's a lot of
Correct.
land in a place like the
Correct.
Gambia.
Correct. She's a young lady. She's in her 20s, and her parents were fortunately, her parents were able to acquire land for her, and so she owns 10 hectares of land, but it's in rural parts of the Gambia. So if you look at the city, the capital city, which is Banjul, with the little star there, and that's more of the urban parts of Gambia. So Bakau, Banjul, Serekunda, Brikama, that's more part of the urban parts of Gambia, and then you go into where the little looks like a snake almost,
Mhm.
parts of that with the river going through it. Those are more parts of the rural parts of Gambia, where you have larger parcels of land that you can get and grow your fruits, vegetables. And in this case, hers is located in the rural parts of the Gambia.
Now, looking at, I'm going to just pick one of these rural cities, towns like Georgetown.
Yeah.
How many women would be in that area that actually would have access to land and through the woman boss be able to start setting up their own agricultural produce, farm their own land, or actually collaborate with landowners around them to actually have an agricultural production uh, business?
So I'm not too familiar with Georgetown. All I know is that there's it was an educational town back in the day. That's why you sense the name Georgetown. But in Farafenni, we do work in Farafenni, which is a little bit right there above
Mhm.
Mansakonko. And in there, we help women entrepreneurs, injecting small amounts of capital where they can have access to seeds,
Mhm.
diversified seeds, so they can have their small parcel of land where they can grow fruits and vegetables and creating access to market for them. And these are more, they're still part of rural Gambia, but then it's in the lower river, they call it lower river region of the Gambia.
Mhm. Mhm. Now we're looking at a larger tract of land, 10 hectares. Also, we're starting to see mechanized equipment being used.
Correct.
So, is she actually expanding the amount of land that's in production and also increasing the amount of products that she can both use locally within the Gambia and also for export?
Well, she's trying. So she's this young entrepreneur and, very popular with what she's doing because she's producing lots of fruits, so dried fruits and nuts. Cashews is one thing
Mhm. Mhm.
that not an easy job, obviously, to produce because everything is handmade, but it's a very popular nut that's being exported out. So she produces that. And, with the freezing and dried freezing of fruits and vegetables, that she wants to do. She educated from outside. And so you can see that, these are some of the bananas and papayas that she's growing. But mainly for her, she found a local, refurbished machinery that she wants to use. But even with that, it's such a small scale to maintain the entire 10 hectares of land. So she's only getting to use the 2 hectares of land
Mhm.
and waiting to have, more resources to have that.
I just want to point out to our viewers, we're always looking for the best practices and everything that we're doing, Awamary. And
Yeah.
when I was traveling in India last year, I was noticing how now they're planting all the trees below the surface
Yes.
of the surrounding terrain and allowing that to become a sump for water, but also it becomes a carbon sump as well. But
Hmm.
I want to point this out to our viewers. Look at how these trees are being planted. I just put 7 new trees. I'm planting an urban forest in the middle of Washington, D.C., Alva, and I
Wow.
use the same technique that you're looking at right here.
That's
We
fantastic.
planted the trees about 5 to 6 inches below the surface of the land, and then we fill that in with mulch in order to capture it. We've been having severe thunderstorms here, not taking away
Hmm.
from your story, but just so that people
Yes.
understand this. But where these 7 trees are located in the yard, you can actually see the water gravitating to go into these small recessions.
Hmm.
And it's actually keeping the stormwater from running off onto the streets and out into the Potomac River. So
Fantastic.
planting the trees like this is really very important. But
Correct.
looking at the labor that she has access to, how is she training and what is she doing as far as a true woman boss to employ people in her surrounding community?
So for her, obviously, she wants to make sure that if you know the Gambia, obviously, you'll know that we have a migration crisis where we have a lot of male youth are taking the back way, going through, the taking boat rides through western coast of the Africa, going into North Africa, then getting into Europe. And a lot of people, obviously, the boats get to capsize, so they don't get to make the journey. And so we encouraging them through agriculture now to say agriculture could be a way out. You want to go look for green pastures, but guess what? When you go into Europe, you're doing the same thing. If you go into Spain and Italy, you get to be a farmer. You're picking strawberries for other people. So why not do it in your own land, where we're teaching you how to be a good farmer, sustainable farmer, creating your own wealth, and so on.
So looking at this, as far as the men and within these communities, so what you're saying is, even though you're really focused on female entrepreneurship and education and business development and all that, a lot of these skills, just like in any community, once you start educating one part of the population, others are starting to benefit from it. So not only it's important as far as the employment, but also the education. So, how are you actually parceling this education out now to the males within the communities?
So for us, I mean, this is the Woman Boss, but I'm also the founder of Overall Innovate Gambia with the different initiatives and concepts. And so the Woman Boss is only targeting women, but everything that we do is really targeting the entire population and what we can do. And so this is actually parts of, the thing is obviously she's employing youth, male youth that are higher risk of, taking the back way is what they call it, the migration. But for us, we even looking at further to bringing precision farming, where you're using the technology to looking at the soil quality, using drones to utilize and think about larger scale. But that's not drawn through the One Boss. It's my other initiatives that I actually work
Right. Yeah.
on.
Innovate Gambia, which is
Yeah,
very important. And we see this here. I mean, this really is a lot of handwork that's going
absolutely.
on in all this. But when you look at the soil, I mean, it really is very high quality soil. I think we just
Correct.
skipped over this. I just want to show that mechanization is
Yeah.
available there, depending on the size and scale, and can be used as far as increasing the amount of productivity that you have. Looking at these plants and the way that she's actually farming, what are some of the green principles that she's using there to protect the soil, the water, and the air quality?
So for her, I mean, I know that she uses a lot of technology that she wants to use because of her educational background, to make sure that she's maintaining, soil quality, the water levels are okay, educating the other farmers on how to do that, especially for the young youth that she's training and maintaining in her farm. But most so is the quality of the products that actually, the produce that actually comes out. Is it ready for the market? Can we export it? Can we dry them? And so on and so forth. So it's really teaching another layer of just not agriculture to, farm to, to table per se, but it's farm to table to exportation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the whole thing about the cycle economy and supply chain, all these modern concepts that we have are really very, very important in these
Hmm.
very traditional areas of Africa where the potential really is a new green economy based on agriculture.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, looking at the different plants that she's growing here, she has different products. You have kind of a mix of vegetables, nuts, and and fruit. How is
Hmm.
that actually helping to increase agricultural productivity in the Gambia?
It's actually helping a lot because so the nuts are obviously majority of the nuts are being exported out because especially with cashews. But the cashew fruit we get to get to eat them at home, and then the nuts are being processed to which are very labor intensive, but to get to exported that. But the fruits and vegetables we actually get to sell in the markets locally. If you know the Gambia, one thing that's really sad and unfortunate is that majority of the hotels, which we have a lot of, their fruits and vegetables are actually imported in from other parts of Africa
Mm,
or even in Europe and a majority South America.
mm,
So we have the land, we have the soil, we just have to know how to properly irrigate the soil and make sure that the produce are well off, that it's the standards of good quality to be able to sell into the hotel industry.
Yeah, it's really very important. What do you see for the growth and development? We have about 20 seconds on for this, Awamary.
Sure.
For agriculturalists like this, the females over the next 5, 10, to 15 years, and we have to be quick.
Yes. All I can see is growth, growth, growth. I know in the Gambia, it's people like her that, or the other women that are featured, are only empowering other women that are coming back home, maybe thinking about or have a passion of healthy eating and growing their own food. So I can only see those numbers, the women entrepreneurs or women farmers growing, and it's just going to create more and more and more generational wealth for women.
Fantastic. Awamary Khan of the Woman Boss, thank you very much as we
Thank
create
you.
the
Thank you so
Emerald
much for
Planet.
having me. Thank you.